morning and welcome to UUCC, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua. We are a group of spiritual free thinkers who gather to celebrate life, build community, and better the world. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. I'm Karen Alvarez, your worship associate for this morning, and the service today is being led by our minister, Eileen Casey Campbell. This service is also being live streamed on our YouTube channel. We will plan on continuing with hybrid worship services throughout the church year, so you can join us each week here in person, on Zoom, or later on YouTube if you prefer. If this is your first visit, welcome. We invite you to sign the visitor's book in the entryway. And whether it's your first visit or your 1,000th, we're glad that you came. I have a few announcements to share with you today. Please wear a mask. Masks are available for anyone who forgot one. We are inviting the children to stay with us for the full service. And please join us after the service for our second Sunday potluck, even if you didn't bring a dish this week. Are there any announcements for the good of the community today? I know Eileen has some.
Thanks. I have two announcements. Good morning.
Good morning.
The first is that it's your last chance to sign up for next weekend's Soil and Spirit Retreat at Fruition Farms, which is a joint effort between our church and Fruition Farm, Fruition Seeds, co-led by Petra Pageman and myself. If you're interested in a mini retreat, it's from 10 to 4 on Saturday. There's lots of details on Fruition Seeds website, and that's also where you can sign up. The second announcement is that we have some folks also next weekend on Sunday and the Sunday after, coming to a story-based preaching workshop. But there are a few more spots available. So if you didn't get invited to that because you've maybe never preached in our congregation before, or I wasn't aware it was something you're interested in, but you are interested in, let me know and we can make some room for you at that workshop. So see me if you're interested in a story-based preaching workshop. You don't have to feel like a preacher or a writer to participate. You just have to have one story in the world that's meaningful to you.
Does anyone else have any announcements? This morning includes a special water communion ritual, and some of you have brought water to share. That's great. If you're worrying about forgetting to do the homework assignment, you can go ahead and forgive your inner child right away. We have water here at the front for anyone to use. If you're at home, feel free to grab some water and also an empty bowl for later in the service. Because it's water communion, we won't have our normal joys and sorrows sharing time. But if you have something big on your heart and you'd like to talk to someone about it, we invite you to seek out a member of the pastoral care team. Team members, will you raise your hand here or in Zoom if you're here this morning? The team includes Nancy Reed, Pat Mills, Scobie Beer, Kevin House, and our minister, Eileen. As we prepare to be fully together, I remind you to silence your phones and devices. We now enter a space of worship. I invite you to join with me in our chalice lighting words as the flame is lit. If you don't know them, they're number 448 at the back of the gray hymnal. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
Morning. Morning. Can you hear me okay? So I took a pottery class this summer on Monday evening. And I signed up for this class thinking, I'm an artist. I'm very good at making things with my hands, but at embroidery, I still have my kindergarten teacher penmanship skills. I have great fine motor skills, which is not a thing you really get to brag about after second grade. So they're letting me work at it. But I figured I'm gonna be an all-star. This is gonna be my jam. And it turns out I was wrong. I'm really bad at pottery. I went to my first class and spent the 3 hours in the class making failed pot after failed pot. We had one that was still standing at the end of 3 hours. It had a hole in the bottom, but it stood up straight. While my classmates were throwing beautiful pots and doing intricate carving, I was just struggling along, feeling a little sorry for myself and quite a bit disappointed. But after a class or two, I decided, this season being our season of Holy Fools, to just lean into the idea of being bad at this, of doing it anyway. And maybe I would get a little bit better and maybe I wouldn't, but I would show up willing to be a fool, to see whatever came out of my hands at the end of the night. And it changed everything for me. That perspective change shifted everything. I got to be playful instead of worried about how this was going to look on my permanent record. I got to have this meditative space with me and a hunk of earth and a spinning wheel in front of me, and not be worried about what came off of it at the end of the night. And by the end of my summer session, I was still terrible. Now listen. We are not in the habit here of making fun of people's harmless pursuits of joy, but it's allowed today. You can laugh at me, okay? I'm the fool this morning and I invite you to laugh. This is the best mug I created. It is adorably bad. It wasn't meant to be a full-size mug, yes. It holds about 3 sips of liquid. You have to sip very carefully because the wobbly rim dribbles down your shirt. It has a full-size handle for a mini mug, and it doesn't sit flat on a table because the bottom is also crooked. It's supposed to be yellow, and this is as good as I got. And I really do think that this is why we come to church. My favorite yoga teacher tells us almost every practice that I do with her, you don't have to come here already good at this. You don't take a bath because you're already clean. We didn't come here because we had it all figured out, right? We didn't come here because we were experts at living in community together. We came here to be fools, to mess it up, to try again, to forgive one another, to make the space for play within our activities here together in this church. So if we're willing to be a little bit of a fool when it comes to church, we get to say things like, ooh, I don't feel like that went well. We try it again. Or we get to say things like, I don't know the right answer to this question. Maybe we figure it out. Maybe we don't. Or we get to say, I don't know what the next best thing is. Let's talk about it together. And maybe we'll know someday, and maybe we won't. May it be so. I'd like to invite you now to rise in body or in spirit here or at home and to sing along with us in our opening hymn, number 1064 in the teal hymnal, Blue Boat Home. Now it's time for a story. So if you're one of our small folk who would like to come up front and sit on the floor in front of the water table, feel free to come up now if you'd like to be a little closer for this story. You can come up now or at any point during the story. Okay, it doesn't mean it's off limits if you don't decide on it right away. This morning's story is about a Polynesian goddess, Pele. You've maybe heard of her, yes? as a deity associated with volcanoes, which she is. But this story is about the sea and a journey without a destination. You see, Pele was the daughter of Haumea, the Mother Earth herself. And Pele, she had some big feelings, like the kind of big feelings that would make the whole earth explode in fiery hot magma when she was overwhelmed. Like, you ever feel that way? Yeah, some of us have felt that way. In this story, Pele was living in the islands of Western Micronesia, near the country of Indonesia, fairly close to the continent of mainland Asia, where the creation of the world, in this worldview, had taken place. And she got a big feeling, like a really big one. She felt something we might call restlessness or wanderlust. She felt a stirring in her heart, like she just had to get out and go somewhere. Where, she didn't have a feeling about that. Just that she had to get out into the big open world and she had to go right away. You ever feel like that? So Pele asked her father, who was a maybe human, maybe divine, maybe a little bit of both, chief of her island. And first he asked her to babysit her little sister, which is typical, right? So after she hatched her baby sister from an egg, they're gods, so it doesn't have to make sense. He gave her a whole cache of provisions, food and supplies for a long, long journey. To where? He asked her, but she just wasn't sure. Next, she went to her brother, the king of sharks, which sounds like a very cool job if I ever get tired of ministry, by the way. I'm going to be king of sharks next. She asked him for help. Thank you. She told him she wanted to go on a journey, that she had this big feeling that she needed to go, but she didn't know where. So he made her a great canoe, big enough for a very long journey. The same kind of canoe in which the Polynesian peoples first explored the islands of the South Pacific, from Tahiti to New Zealand, to Samoa, to Tonga, to Hawaii, and many, many, many more. And so finally, Pele went to her mother, Haumea, the Mother Earth. And she said, I have a big feeling, Mother, that I need to go. And her mother asked, where are you going? But all that Pele could say was, to the east. The east, this story tells us, at that time was a vast, uncreated emptiness, a void with nothing out there. But Pele's big feeling was pulling her toward the unknown. And so her mother gave her one last gift, a gift of the sea itself. And with her gifts and her family's love, Pele set out. She made her way east in a great canoe, spilling the sea from her own forehead as to sail over as she went. She poured the sea out ahead of her, making a way where there had been no way, just nothingness. And as she went, she pulled up island after island, finally journeying and pulling up a chain of Hawaiian islands far, far to the east. She found on them beauty and abundance she didn't even know she was looking for. So having satisfied her big restless feeling, Pele sailed back for her beloved siblings and brought them all to live with her on the beautiful little island of Kauai, happily ever after. Well, sometimes she did get mad and explode volcanoes on her siblings when they bothered her, but mostly happily ever after. And this is the end of our story. And if you'd like, you can go back to your seats now.
Now is the time in our service to join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gifts support our church in its work. That work is summarized in our covenant. The covenant for UUCC says, in service of the values that unite us, we will recognize the inherent value of each person, foster a community of compassion and caring for all, value our diverse opinions, and engage respectfully in all interactions. 1/4 of our plate collection for the homecoming season goes to Literacy Volunteers Ontario Yates, an organization that provides adults the literacy skills needed to reach their full potential as individuals, parents, workers, and citizens. You can give to this morning's offering by placing cash or a check in the basket, or if you are joining us from home, by visiting canandaiguauu.org/connection/donate, or mailing a check to UUCC at 3024 Cooley Road, Canandaigua, New York, 14424. In either case, make a note that your gift is intended for today's offering. We now gratefully accept the offering.
Now is the time in our service for centering, followed by some shared silence. By shared silence, of course, we mean the absence of grown-ups talking to each other so that we can listen more closely for the sounds of life. The cars whizzing by on the road outside, the rain dripping on the roof, the wiggles and giggles of our children, the breath of our neighbor beside us, our own heartbeats. I invite you to take a deep breath in now. Get comfortable in your seat. Feel supported by this good earth. The monarchs fly home to Mexico every autumn. Over a 3,000-mile stretch of this wide earth, they fly in staggered generations. The great-great-grandchildren of lepidopteran pilgrims who set out from Ontario arrive in the Sierra Madres, a home they know only in the shadows of ancestral memory. It is said that great gauzy swarms of wayfaring butterflies in flight over Lake Superior swerve to the east. Every year they reroute, avoiding the path of collision with an ancient mountain that has not existed for eons. What would it be to trust so deeply the wisdom of ancestors laid down in my veins and sinew? What would it be to know we'll never make it home and set out toward it anyway? Amen. So in our team of religious professionals from our 3 local UU congregations chose this fall's homecoming theme of holy fools, I was picturing the image on the tarot card of the fool. So a disclaimer, I am familiar with this one card, but I'm not a tarot enthusiast. I am sorry, I cannot answer your tarot-related spiritual questions after the service. I will refer you to Reverend Lane Mayreed at First Universalist. They are the one. But this card, this one card that I know about, has an image of a fool, a person in a sort of court jester outfit, looking happily up at the sky as he's about to walk off the edge of a cliff. A picture of it is in this season's Soul Matters packet if you want to take a look at it later. And while I can't stress this enough, I don't want us to walk off the edge of a literal or metaphorical cliff, plunging to our probable doom. I do find the image compelling, and it made me think about being a teenager. I had a mom, and maybe you'll find this relatable, who, when she thought I was maybe succumbing to that demon of the 90s, peer pressure, she would say to me, if all your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? This is relatable, right? She asked me this mostly when she wanted me to take her advice instead of my friends. And I was a snarky and insufferable teenager. So I responded to this rhetorical question the same way every time. Probably, yeah, I'd say. If my friends are jumping off a bridge, there's probably a good reason. Maybe the bridge is on fire. Maybe they're being chased. Maybe the water's cool and deep and it's hot outside. I trust my friends. If they jump, I'd probably jump. She did not appreciate this. As a parent, I can really relate to not appreciating this. But this kind of sass is one of the reasons why I love teenagers so much. I should reiterate, I'm not a parent of teenagers, but this kind of sass is why I love teenagers so much. Adolescents make the best holy fools. One of their greatest gifts to our communities is a total rejection of the way we do things here. They do not care about the way we do things here. They do not care that their crop tops scandalize us. They do not care that their slang confuses us. More importantly, they do not care that their church has sung those problematic hymn lyrics the same way for 200 years, or that their grandparents are uncomfortable with the limitlessness of gender. And that kind of foolishness, that kind of willingness to wander into the unknown just to see what new delights might be out there, is exactly what we need to change the world. The best spiritual teachers, I think, whether they were young adults or not, are willing to be fools, to reject the expectations of the status quo and set forth towards something new and unknown. Like Jesus, they ignore the social rules and customs and are willing to face being ostracized or worse if it means they can be real. Like Nasruddin, they're willing to look ridiculous if it means venturing out and connecting with that transcendent force of love. Like Miss Frizzle, they're willing to take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. And like Pele in our story and the people who told the story of Pele, holy fools are ready to answer the stirring in their heart, to set forth and explore, even when they don't know where they're going. Because the fool admits what most of the rest of us do not want to admit, that we are not in control of very much of what happens to us and our communities. That try as we might to make solid plans for the future, none of us knows what it brings or where we may end up. It's the fool who smiles as he takes that step, but we're all on the edge of the cliff. I remember 21 years ago today, when I was a snarky and insufferable teenager, on my 16th birthday, in fact, watching a plane crash into a building on live news on what I thought would be a regular Tuesday with cake at the end of it. I remember watching the second of the Twin Towers crumble to the ground during English class and feeling like in that moment and the weeks following, we had all stepped off a cliff. We had set sail into a void where there wasn't even an ocean to hold us, as the path we all thought we were on toward a predictable and expected future dissolved beneath our feet. I watched friends trade in plans for community college or factory jobs or taking over their parents' farms to become adult enough overnight to literally set sail toward a war that would leave them injured in their bodies and in their souls and fully middle-aged before it ended. I think a lot of us felt that way a couple years ago. Almost in an instant, pandemic snuck up and pushed us right off the edge of a cliff we didn't know was in front of us. The world we thought lay comfortably ahead fell away suddenly, and we were explorers in the abyss, setting sail without a plan, without a destination, maybe without even a sea beneath our boat, unprepared and scared to death. And look, I'm not a holy enough fool to tell you I love living in these unprecedented times. I would kill for a precedent here or there. But the beauty of the holy fool, the gift of the fools among us, and the gift to ourselves, if we decide to be fools for a day or a year or a lifetime, is to find the joy and abundance and new life even in the unknown wild out there. To smile as we step out toward who knows what. The holy fool goes out into the unknown, believing against all reason and rules that unseen wonders might just exist out there. And then, like Pele, comes back to bring the rest of us along toward a bright new world if we're willing to go. It's scary to do. I like to think fear was at least one of Pele's really big feelings. I'm scared to feel like I don't know what comes next for us as a community or as a society. But I do know this. I trust you fools. My friends, if you are jumping off a bridge, I'm jumping with you. Really. May it be so. And so I want to invite you to participate in our water communion this morning. Please join in this ritual, whether you brought water from a special source or whether you use the water from our last year's communion that's here on this table. Join in our sanctuary or at your home if you're worshiping on Zoom or YouTube. And let's start with a breath. If you have water in front of you here or at home, let your gaze fall to your container of water. Let your eyes soften. For a moment, allow your breath to slow and draw your focus inward. Listen for that voice that sings in the deep well of your soul. You know what is held in your own heart. And so you might choose to honor one of three big feelings today with your water. A sense of drought within you, or the feeling of a swirling storm, or the awareness of calm stillness. One more breath, slow and together. If you listen now and find that your heart is in drought, in need of refreshment and renewal, if the far corners of your soul have gone unwatered for far too long, and labor or loneliness or grief has sapped life from the ground of your being, I invite you to pour some water into the bowl now and feel the nourishment that Pele felt from her Mother Earth and yours. Feel the gift of the sea pouring out for you. If your big feeling is drought, come forward now.
go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Feel renewal in your heart, beloved. Feel renewal in your heart. Feel renewal in your heart, beloved. Feel renewal in your heart. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. You're divine, my divine. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will lie. Where you lie, I will lie, beloved. Where you lie, I will
Remembering, if you've already come up, that we are complicated creatures who can have more than one big feeling at a time. Listen within you. If you listen and hear that you are in a storm, the upheaval of wild winds blowing you in every direction, if the squalls of injustice or disease or sorrow threaten to submerge you, pour some water into the bowl now. Pour and feel relief from the frenzy of the storm, a strong and steady boat to hold you.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Feel relief from the storm. 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 And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go. Waters. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go. Waters. Where you go, I will go. Feel relief from the storms of clear waters. Feel relief from the storm. Feel relief from the storms of clear waters. Feel relief from the storm. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Finally, listen to your hearts. If you listen within and discover calm waters, waters that glimmer in the light and reflect truth back to you, waters that heal and hold and lift you buoyant in all the goodness of life and love. Pour some water in the bowl now. Pour in gratitude for the calm and abundance within you, for a place to return to in your times of need. Come forward now.
Where you go, I will go now, children. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go now, children. Where you go, I will go. Feel the calm in your life now, children. Feel the calm in your life. Feel the calm in your life now, children. Feel the calm in your life. And your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. My divine, your divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Feel the calm in your life now, children. Feel the calm in your life. Feel the calm in your life now, children. Feel the calm in your life. And your people are my people. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go.
May these waters, the combined gifts and needs of all of us, remind us that alone we might feel like just a drop, but together we make a whole and holy ocean. Even at the cliff's edge, we are never without that deep wellspring of hope that resides within us. Together we are ready to set out into the unknown. So now, even though it's a little different for us, we're going to extinguish our chalice before our closing hymn this morning. And then we'll sing through the hymn once. And the second time through, I want to invite you all, if you're willing and able, to follow me and Karen in a procession outside to make an offering of this water to join the waters from the sky in the earth of our gardens. So let's sing the first verse of our hymn together. No, let's extinguish our chalice. Thank you, Bill.
We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth,
the warmth of community,
or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.